I'm a professional bisexual.
Welcome back to Bisexual Killjoy, the place where we know bisexuality isn't a phase, it's a phenomenon. I'm Bailey, and this is...
Jace.
As we talked about in episode 1, season 4 is all about bi plus history. Where did we come from? Where are we now? Where are we going? And to aid in this conversation, we wanted to turn to our community, especially those who have had a large influence on bi plus history. So, after having just had a lovely potluck with many a bi plus person and feeling quite full of community solidarity, and because we happen to like you very, very much, we are pleased to welcome the incomparable Robyn Ochs on today's episode, Bi Plus Activism and the Long Haul.
Robyn Ochs is an educator, speaker, grassroots activist, and editor of Bi Women Quarterly and 2 anthologies, the 42-country collection Getting Bi, Voices of Bisexuals Around the World, and Recognize, the Voices of Bisexual Men. Her writings have been published in numerous bi, women's studies, multicultural, and LGBTQ+ anthologies, and she has taught courses on LGBTQ+ history and politics at Tufts University, MIT, and Northern Vermont University. Among other things, she crafted the definition of bisexuality that is used by many bi plus activists and academics around the world. I call myself bisexual because I acknowledge in myself the potential to be attracted, romantically and or sexually, to people of more than one gender, not necessarily at the same time, in the same way, or to the same degree. Robyn is deeply committed to intersectional and sustainable activism, to working with others, building coalitions across identities, and across social movements. She is particularly interested in bi plus health and experiences of bi plus people in the workplace, the global bi plus movement, bi plus elders, and bi and LGBTQIA youth. An activist for over 50 years so far, she is in it for the long haul. In 2024, she was named an LGBT History Icon. Thank you so much for being here with us, Robyn.
It is such a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
We are recording live from my dining room right now. And again, we did just have a super nice potluck with the Bi Plus Women and Femmes in and around Boston. One of the largest so far.
I think it was the largest so far.
Oh.
Ever in all these years.
Which is how many years?
More than 40.
Wow.
I will say that my Bi Plus cup is definitely filled. I feel so good.
I do too. It's really surprising. I mean, not at this point, but how reaffirming it can be just to sit with people who understand your experience, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, Robyn, you've been a part of this community, at the forefront of this community for a really, really long time. And some of our listeners might have actually heard you tell the, oh, wait, I'm bisexual and there's a word for it story before. However, most people who haven't engaged in this space probably haven't. Would you mind setting the stage for this conversation and telling us how you realized you were bi and how you came to help sculpt the movement into what it is today?
How many hours do we have?
I know. We like to try to keep it under 60 minutes, but
Yeah, that's the
Good
goal.
luck with that. So when I think about my experience is shaped by context. And I grew up in New York City, and I also grew up BG before Google. I grew up in a time when there was no internet. And I see such a profound difference in people's experiences before and after, the internet became commonplace. So when I grew up, there was no information. There was very little information. I did grow up with a bunch of cool kind of hippie kids, so we thought we were really super cool. We knew some stuff probably that a lot of other kids didn't know, but there was so much that we didn't know. And one of the things I didn't internalize was the understanding that people could like people of their own gender. Like it just wasn't even in my frame. So when I look back at my history, I came out as bisexual to myself my very first month at college. I was at Purchase College, which is in Westchester, New York. And in my first month of school, I developed a West Side Story level crush on another woman. And it was such an enormous crush that there was no way I could deny that it was happening. It was big.
Okay.
And what that led me to was a mountain of questions. What is going on? And I went through this whole process of thinking, oh, am I really a lesbian? I'm head over heels for this woman. And I thought, to be a lesbian, you would need to
what's the checklist?
Be attracted to women.
Check.
Big check. And then I also thought to be a lesbian, you would need to not be attracted to men, which isn't always the case for actual lesbians, but that's what I thought. And so I thought, have I been attracted to men? I sure thought I have. Yeah. And in fact, I made a chronological list of all the guys I had crushes on.
Wow.
From most recent to the oldest. And I got to the first name and I thought, did I really have a crush on him? Or was it just like performative heterosexuality, and I thought, no, I really had a crush on him.
Okay.
Went to the second name, really had a crush. Got to the third name, and I thought, this is silly.
You're like, I enjoy men.
Yeah, I mean, I have
crushes on them.
I definitely have. And then I thought, well, maybe this crush on this one woman is a one-off.
A very scientific approach, I'll say.
Yeah, well, I have my moments. I was like, maybe it's just like, I don't know. So anyway, I went through this whole process, and then I just thought, this is ridiculous. I am definitely attracted to men and women. I'm bisexual. But what happened for me after that is I didn't know what to do next. It wasn't that hard to figure out that I was bisexual, but I really got stuck in that space between knowing and being. Like I knew, and that was clear, but I didn't know how to be a bisexual person in the world. I was terrified that if I told anyone else what I was feeling, I would lose all my friends, that my family would hate me. And this wasn't based necessarily on reason. It was based on feeling. It was such a powerful certainty that I had, and it was coming from fear. And so I ended up for 5 years completely silent. I didn't tell anybody what was going on. And for 5 years, I suffocated in my own silence. It was, looking back, it was awful. It was really unhealthy and awful. And finally, 5 years later, a coworker came out to me at work.
As bi?
As bi. She sat me down and told me, and she said she was bisexual, and I just blurted out, so am I! And I exhaled for the first time in 5 years.
Wow.
And it was such a sense of relief, of release, of... I just felt I was breathing deeply all of a sudden. And for me, that was the beginning of starting to tell other people. And lo and behold, very few people responded as badly as I feared they would. Almost everybody responded better than I thought they would. I did get a few weird responses, as happens, but nobody said, I don't want to be your friend anymore. And no one in my family kicked me out, And so anyway, that was the beginning. I moved to, and then shortly after that, I moved to Boston. It was 1982, September. I moved on Labor Day. And
wow.
I know.
Tough.
That's the most Boston thing you could do.
Yeah, that's true, with all the schools here. So I moved on Labor Day, and I was painting my apartment that was inexpensive because there were reasons it was very inexpensive. It was a dump. I was plastering and painting and putting up wallpaper to hide all kinds of things. I took a break and I opened up the local feminist newspaper, which is called Equal Times. And in it was a calendar listing for a meeting at the Women's Center. It was called Women's Rep, and they had different topics every week. And the topic for that very night was, yes, it was bisexuality. And I just thought, oh my goodness, because until this moment, I only knew for sure that I knew 2 bisexual people in the entire world.
Statistically unlikely.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah, well, we do now.
I showed up at this meeting at the Women's Center, and I walked in the room, and there were 20 women in the room.
Whoa.
Whoa. And 19 of us identified as bisexual, just like me.
Okay.
And the 20th woman was a lesbian named Madge who had come to cruise.
Okay.
True story. But 19 bisexual women in one room, and I was like, I honestly, on some level, I wasn't sure that there were that many bisexual people in the world until that night. And it was such a great feeling. I just remember grinning. We just grinned. I just smiled so hard that my cheeks felt weird at the end.
Well, I have a question. So you come out to yourself as bi, and at this point in time, is the word bi, the concept of bisexuality in the world at all? Is it in pop culture? Is it in the news?
There was no LGBTQ plus much of anything in the news. If you can dig through culture, you can find these little references, but most LGBTQ content was coded, and like if you knew it, you knew it.
Yeah.
But if you didn't know it, you didn't know it. And, it's interesting. Sometimes even now I'll go back and I'll watch some older film and I'm like, oh. Or I'll read some book again. It's like, oh. But I didn't see it at the time because it was written in such a way that you didn't see it unless you knew to look for it. There was stuff out there, but again, there was no internet. So the path to finding things wasn't as clear. I did take a women's studies class my first year of college, and we did read Ruby Fruit Jungle and Patience and Sarah. And, one of my professors was a lesbian who's an anthropologist named Esther Newton, who is amazing. She's still amazing. We're Facebook friends, and occasionally we correspond. There was just so little knowledge, and I feel like knowledge spread in such different ways then than it does now.
Yeah.
Because maybe moving forward, like the way ideas spread now, like someone will post something on social media and tons of people read it, and people from all these different geographic locations interact with it, and ideas get workshopped in a very different way. Back then, you had your little tiny group. Like we had in 1982 when we started the Bivocals, which was our first support group, and that started out of that meeting at the Women's Center.
Oh.
At the end of the meeting, Marcia Deal, who's one of our people, stood up and said, is there anyone in this room who would be interested in forming an ongoing group? And we 8 of us ended up being the Bivocals, because we get the best puns. And we met monthly for almost 10 years.
Wow.
It was amazing. Like, we had so little in common in so many ways, but we all identified as bi. It was the one place in my life where you could go and nobody challenged your identity. It was like, I'm bisexual, of course you are.
Yeah.
We talked about all kinds of things, but it was such a nice, comfortable resting space to be in every month where you just, of course you are.
How did that space differ from other queer spaces that you were a part of at that time?
Well, at the time, I really wasn't in a whole lot of queer spaces. At college, when I was in college, there was definitely a lesbian and gay group on campus, but I think they meant lesbian and gay. And they had an office on the 3rd or 4th floor of the campus center. And I still remember I'd walk past that office over and over and over and glance over, but hope no one saw me. And then I'd find all kinds of reasons to be in that office. And then in our mailroom on campus, the rumor was that it was run by the lesbian mafia.
Oh.
The truth was that there was this woman named Lydia who ran the mailroom, and she hired all her friends. That's all.
I mean, that is what a lesbian mafia would be, is just someone running a mailroom and having their friends in it.
It was great. So I checked my mail every day. And I usually didn't get mail, but I checked it anyway. So things like that. But I really didn't get the sense from, I'd hear little pieces of things, and one of my suite mates was involved with that community, but I really didn't get the sense that I would be welcome as a bisexual person.
This is at the end of the 70s.
In the 70s, 76 to 80. I did something that in retrospect was pretty strategic, is that I made best friends with 3 gay men, Terrence, Ernesto, and Kenny. They were my besties at college, and I hung out with them all the time. And so I think in a way, like, I was their straight friend, as far as they knew. I knew I wasn't straight, but they didn't know that. And I was their fruit fly.
Aww.
And I hung out with them all the time. We'd go out dancing, we'd hang out. And so in a way, they were my ticket into Gay Town without me having to say anything.
Gotcha. Okay.
And I didn't understand at the time why they were so compelling to me. They were also really great people. Like, they were my friends. But I think that they also provided a doorway for me.
Bisexual Killjoy is growing, friends.
What started as just a podcast has now blossomed into a whole community project.
We're not only dropping episodes, we've got culture commentary and hyper-personal essays just for you on our Substack. Get all your burning questions answered through our advice column, Give It To Me by Plus, and you can hang out with other Killjoys in our brand new Discord server.
The best part?
It's free to join.
But if you love the work we do and want to make sure we don't burn the fuck out, you can become a paid subscriber and you'll get sweet perks like bonus episodes, bonus posts, and exclusive discussion groups with your favorite Killjoys.
We'd love to have you in the mix.
Come join the community.
See you there.
So by the time you get to Boston, now you're in the Bivocals, and the Bi Women Quarterly starts in 83 or 84.
Okay, so the Bivocals started.
Okay.
And we started meeting monthly. And then the Women's Center ran that topic again. And we sent a couple of people over to the meeting. And at the end of the meeting, we said, we have started this group, and we just want to suggest that you might want to start one too. So a year later, there were 3 different support groups.
For bi
women.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
In like different parts of town, or how are they
Just
different?
different groups of people.
Okay.
So there was the Bivocals, there was the Hasbians.
Wow, we love a pun.
I know, right? And I don't think the third one had a name. It was 4 people, including my friend Angie. Yeah, so there were 3 different groups, and then we decided to have a meeting at the Women's Center of all the groups to try to create something bigger. And we set up this meeting at the Women's Center, and we expected about 30 women to show up. And let's just say that they could not fit into the building.
Wow.
Like, there were people outside in the garden, the flower beds, like looking in the windows. That we were kind of stacked inside the room. It was.
To think about that many people in one space, where right now it can be difficult to get 10 queer people of any variety in a space at once.
It's interesting, isn't it? And
Yeah.
I guess in part it's because there were no other ways to connect except in person. Like, that was it. Out of that meeting, we started the Boston Bisexual Women's Network. And one of the things that we did was that we started Bi Women, which is now Bi Women Quarterly. And that was just the first issue was a 4-page news sheet that just listed events. Because again, you couldn't put events on the web. There was no web.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You had to either use phone trees.
Tree?
It's a phone tree is a list where you, like, I might be on the list and then I get called and I'm supposed to call 4 other people. But There were no answering machines.
Remember those email chains? Well, you're a little bit younger than I am, but email chains were kind of the same way. Like, send this to 4 other people and tell them this news.
The only thing that I'm aware of that works that way are MLMs and Facebook scams.
It's almost impossible to imagine what it was like then. I mean, really, even for me now looking back, it's hard to remember it. But what we would do, we would put up posters at the Women's Center, at the bookstore, at the food co-op, any place that we were allowed to put up posters. We'd make 8x11 flyers and we'd put them up wherever we could. We would try to get calendar listings into physical newspapers. It was a whole different...
Whose job was that? Who's in charge of printing? Who's in charge of getting it into the newspaper? Because now, even thinking about that on a spreadsheet makes me sweat.
Yeah, it gets you dizzy.
Well, it's interesting. One of the signature qualities of the Boston Bisexual Women's Network is that we have never had a president or any other elected officer. We've always been this grassroots collective, which in our best times has been one of our biggest strengths because it's just amazing that things happen. But in the times when people aren't stepping up, it means that the work falls on 1 or 2 people.
Yeah.
And that's not great. But I do kind of like the fact that we for a little while, we called people, like there was like the post office box diva. We had different titles and they were all diva who did different tasks for us.
I love that. We should have more titles with diva in the name.
Do you think we'd get more volunteers?
Maybe.
That might help.
I dubbed thee diva.
I think that what's really cool about this story that you're telling us is that, you first know these 2 people that are bi. You're not entirely sure that anybody else is bi in the whole wide world, right? And you show up to this one meeting and there's 10 times the amount of people that you knew back then. So when we say statistically unlikely, we really do mean it, because then the second meeting that came around, it's almost like 10 times that amount of people because they didn't fit inside.
Yeah, no, we were there. We just didn't know. There was no way to find each other. It was very difficult to find each other. It was amazing.
And you heard about the mail room being run by the lesbian mafia, and you started a bi mafia running a new mail room, kinda, sort of, with Bi Women Quarterly.
Metaphorical mail room or something like that. Yeah, so it was just so wonderful having community. So we started having monthly, we would meet at somewhere else, which was a women's bar. We'd have monthly meetings. They would let us use their upstairs early in the evening. We met in New Words Bookstore in the basement. They had a meeting room that we would meet sometimes. And it was just, and then we started doing these monthly brunches, potluck brunches in people's homes. So every month we would do a brunch and somebody would host it. And that's actually the same brunch that happened today, 40-something years later.
It's important to be part of legacy, everybody.
It
Host a
is.
brunch.
And I mean, it's really cool to think about how we are a part of that legacy, with Bailey hosting this amazing potluck this morning, and how brilliant it was to not just sit in company of other bi plus women and femmes, but also knowing that this has gone on for so long. And wow, it's almost like connecting with it throughout time. Robyn, you've been doing this for a while now. During all of this time, there are so many bi plus stories and leaders that we just don't talk about or we don't hear about enough. Who are some bi plus elders whose stories you think we need to remember?
Oh my goodness, there are so many. And that's one thing that's important to remember. There were so many. This movement has never been a top-down movement. It's always been spread out in various locations. It's always been very grassroots. It's never been well-resourced in terms of dollars. Yeah, so it's everything that's happened has happened because of the passion of various individuals or groups of individuals who got together. And one of the things I'm really proud of was the conferences. I think in 1984, so we were a year old, we found out that there was going to be a conference on bisexuality at UConn, and I think it was organized at the School of Social Work. And we were there. I still remember driving there with this car full of people. We had a couple of cars that went down. It was amazing. I had never been in that kind of group before. And then a year later, we organized a similar conference in Boston.
What was it called?
East Coast Bisexual Network. We created this so-called organization called the East Coast Bisexual Network just because we needed to have a checking account that could be passed from conference to conference. So any money left over from one conference would be used for the next.
Gotcha.
So we were in New York, then we were in Portland, Maine. Boston, Portland, Maine, New York City. Those are the ones I remember. Yeah, so then the East Coast Bisexual Network became the Bisexual Resource Center and became an official 501c3 nonprofit in 1985.
Turning 40 years old this year.
Yeah, and I was on the original board.
Yeah. Who else was on that board with you?
Woody Glenn, Alan Hamilton. I don't remember who else. It was a small group of people, but I would say Woody Glenn was probably the main organizer. He was the energizing bunny. He passed away this year.
He did.
He was a force. Yeah, then they ended up doing all kinds of stuff, but I haven't been on the board since the first year.
Really?
Because I'm doing all the other things.
Oh, yeah, there are many other things that you do.
One thing I've learned is it's good not to try to do everything. It's better for a movement if there are a lot of different people involved. Sometimes it's really good to step back and let other people lead. And there's plenty of things that need to be done. Yeah, I've learned like it's okay if I'm not involved in everything, and if I'm not at every single event, it's good.
Yeah, like you can support in so many other ways now, even. Just sharing an event with your network can have a huge impact because it can reach the people who can go to that thing. Yeah. But I know that we are a decentralized movement, and in many ways that's good. But in some ways, it's rough for the cataloging of our history because there's no, look at this lineage that's been written down, like some other organizations. What do you think happens when we forget people?
Well, even if we forget individual people, the work that they did still has its impact. Before you asked about people that I think have been leaders, and I just want to call out a few.
Sure.
And actually, this is connected to the history question. So I wanted to say Bobby Keppel, who is a woman who lived in Portland, Maine. She lives in Portland, Maine, and she's a social worker, and she just basically tried to organize Maine all by herself. She's amazing. She's absolutely amazing. And she's also written, I just reread it recently, a piece about bisexual elders.
Wow.
It's one of the few things that have been written, and it was really good. It was really good. And it's in one of the bisexual psychology anthologies. So I want to call her out, definitely, or call her in, or call her up.
Call her up.
Call her up. Lani Kahumanu.
We love Lani.
I love Lani too. And Lorraine Hutchins, who I also love. They got together and they created this anthology called By Any Other Name, Bisexuals Speak Out. And in a way, that the question about recording our history, that's it.
Yeah.
I feel like the Bi Women Quarterly, the people who wrote for Bi Women Quarterly over the years, the people whose stories appear in By Any Other Name, the anthology that I co-edited, Getting By, the Bisexual Men's Anthology. There was Bisexual Lives out of the UK. There are definitely a bunch of places where our histories have been written down as they were happening by people. And you can go back now and see, because Bobby Keppel is in By Any Other Name. She's also in Getting By. A lot of our elders, I'm also thinking of A. Billy S. Jones-Hennon,
Miss A.
who
Billy.
was a dear friend of mine. He was amazing. He was just he was in it for so long, so deeply, and so calmly, and with such deep commitment and love. He's someone who led with love.
Yeah.
I still remember the first time I met him. He was just so kind and welcoming, and he was what we need. What I always felt nourished when I was in his presence, because he makes you feel heard. He made you feel heard, loved, and important.
As many people in the Bi+ community do. I don't know if advocacy work or the work or whatever you would consider it. Do you consider what you do advocacy?
Absolutely.
Okay. I don't know if it's the type of person drawn to this work that can be warm and energizing because they're just I see you, I accept you, let's get to work.
I think people are drawn toward different types of work, but those people who usually choose to be up in public, I don't know, to be up in public for any length of time, if you're not doing that, then you're not going to be up there for long.
Yeah.
True.
Then you should go write some brilliant articles in your closet or in your attic.
Not your closet. Robyn Ochs does not advocate for anyone going back in the closet.
I don't mean that kind of closet, but I mean, no, seriously, if you're not a people person, you can still do a lot of things.
Yeah.
But maybe you volunteer to do administrative stuff in the background. Maybe you do something else that's less public facing, but to be public facing over a long period of time, you really do need to like people.
Absolutely.
And you do need to value them and also listen to them. Because one thing that's really clear to me, you used my definition of bisexual earlier, and I didn't make that up by myself. I have had the privilege of being out there doing workshops and talks and working with so many different groups of people, and I welcome feedback. I've learned to welcome feedback. And constructive feedback and also positive feedback. But, I would put out a definition or a version of the definition and someone would come up to me later and say, but have you thought about this? And I always try to take that in with an open heart, open mind and listen. Sometimes people suggest things and I think, no, actually, no. That doesn't work. But sometimes it changes how I think. And I love it because the definition that I use is one that has been workshopped over many years by a whole bunch of different people. And I wrote it down, but I didn't think of it all by myself.
What's really cool about that is that it really does exemplify that knowledge is co-created. It's always going to be a group endeavor. And we know that firsthand, being an academically oriented podcast, constantly citing other folks doing the work, being involved in the bisexual research group, information, knowledge, the analysis, it's always going to be a group effort. It's never going to be a single person's brainchild. And that applies to more than just written articles and data. It applies to everything that we experience and that we define for ourselves.
Yeah, and even if one person does write it down, it's a result of a lot of different people's thoughts and ideas.
Hey Killjoys, we've got big news.
The Bi Plus Book Gang is publishing its very first anthology, by all accounts, and it drops September 23rd.
This isn't just another book. It's a collection of stories, essays, art, and poems from Bi Plus writers from around the world.
It's about visibility, identity, joy, and resilience, and it's available in both print and ebook.
So if you've been searching for a book that feels like community, this is the one.
Pre-order your copy of By All Accounts today and help us put Bi Plus voices where they belong, front and center. You know, something that I like about this conversation we're having is bringing up the fact that our history has been written down, but many of us don't have the knowledge to go look for it. We talked about this in season 1 about how bisexuality needs a new PR firm.
Truly.
And using channels like this to amplify work that's already been done. There's some young advocates and activists out there who think they need to reinvent the wheel. And I'm like, no, the wheel exists. Come, let me show you how it rolls, and you can add to it and contribute your knowledge. But we were talking a lot about Bi Women Quarterly in the construction of these show notes. And Bi Women Quarterly has been around for over 40 years now, right? What lessons have you learned about preserving history outside traditional institutions, i.e., how do you come up with these themes? When do these prompts come about for the quarterlies?
Sometimes, well, we do ask people to suggest themes. So some of them are generated by someone's interest. And if someone suggests a theme, I say, and will you promise to write for that theme? So there is a cost in that someone has to invest in it. But oftentimes it's just, I don't know, I just think of them. And again, conversations happen. These days with all the Zoom, we do a lot of the Bi Plus World Meetup, which is quarterly. The Boston Bisexual Women's Network and Bi Women Quarterly host a monthly digital brunch. Part of that is breakout groups, and part of that is discussion topics. And some of our more recent topics have come out of discussion topics.
The call for submissions as of July 5th is on aging?
It's on aging.
Yeah.
And that's going to be guest edited by Ellen Ruthstrom.
Who we love.
Yeah.
Yes.
She does a lot for the community.
Yes, Ellen does. Ellen was the president for the BRC for
Several years.
Is now the executive director for Speak Out Boston.
Yes, which is our speakers bureau. Yeah.
We love Ellen so much. But I was curious, how did aging get selected this time?
Ellen picked it.
Ellen picked it. Okay.
When Ellen guest edits about once a year, and when she guest edits, she gets to pick her theme.
Okay.
And then the one after that is allies and accomplices.
I like that.
And not just how people
That's
can support us,
exciting.
but also how we can do that for others.
Yeah.
For each other and for others. We try to pick topics that are broad and that can be interpreted in different ways, but where there's some sort of thread that goes through all of them. The most recent issue that just came out was on finding community.
And speaking about trying to support each other as we do so much of this work, what would you tell someone who's trying to document their local or digital Bi Plus community?
Or start their own project, or kind of do what you're doing, but just starting out, I guess.
I would say definitely do it. I'd also say make sure you have lots of backups.
Backing up the data is crucial.
Websites can just go bye-bye.
That's true.
But I think it's part of it is believing in the value of our history and of our voices. And the fact that we are making history every day.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like this show is making history. Like your podcast is so important, and it's part of our history, both in that you're documenting things that have happened, but you're also creating history by the fact of the podcast is another part of our history. And I think it's just valuing us, valuing our voices. Oh, I want to talk about Bi Women Quarterly and how it's changed.
Oh, yeah. How has Bi Women Quarterly changed over the years?
It started off being a very local information sheet, and then it turned into a newsletter, which had, some articles and also a calendar of events and things like that. And now I see it more as a magazine.
Yeah, I would agree.
So in 2009, I put it online, because before that it was only in print.
Okay.
Although I'm happy to say that all the issues before that are in Schlesinger Library's collection, and they're also available to the public.
Awesome.
Because I picked Schlesinger partly because it's a public archive. And so anyone who wants to research our history can go there and find it, either online or it's also digitized.
Oh, yeah.
And it's in print. One of the ways that By Women Quarterly has grown over the years, ever since I've been editor, I always look at the issue and I think, who's here and who's missing? Who's missing from this space? Like, who's not yet represented within these pages? And then I try to do something about it. So I've tried really hard to make sure that we have geographic representation, that we have age representation, that we have racial diversity, that we have trans and non-binary voices in every issue, that we have just women with like all kinds of different experiences, women who are married to men, women who are married to non-binary people, people who are polyamorous, celibate, monogamous, like everybody. I really wanted to look like everybody. And then several years ago, I also wanted to focus on making it more global. We always had a couple of people from other countries who would write in. So every issue had a little bit of that. We had an Around the World feature, which we still have, where we'd focus on one person from some country somewhere. But now I'm working really hard to make sure that the world is throughout all the pages. Every issue has usually close to 10 or more different countries represented. And it's really important because there is no other bi women's publication in the world. And I want someone from Malaysia, for example, to be able to find some bisexual person from Malaysia that hopefully she or they can relate to.
It's so interesting you say that because when I interview people for the Bi Plus booking, sometimes they'll tell me, I've written for the Bi Women Quarterly before, but I don't know if I'm a writer. And I'm like, if Robyn Ochs heard you say that, she'd be upset. You're a writer.
She'd say, yes, you're a writer.
You're a writer. Absolutely.
And that's one of the other values of the publication is I want to make sure that every issue also has people who have never been published before.
Yeah.
As well as people who have. Just the range of experience. That's the value of it. Eventually, I hope that people from almost any different experience could go online to our website and find somebody who reflects some important aspect of their experience that they don't usually get validated and see themselves there and feel seen.
I will definitely say that By Women Quarterly was the first publication that I had in the US. Before that, I had published one or two things back home in like the newspaper. And I remember how big of a celebration it was at the time. I was like, oh my God, babe! Robyn said she liked my piece. And how exciting that was. And I love to know that so many other folks, I presume, are also sharing in a very similar experience.
Yeah.
And as you talk about the way that By Women Quarterly has transformed, starting from this one pamphlet now into this beautiful magazine, I am curious if you can talk a little bit about how bisexual that is, that transformation itself, and how important it has been to remain under the same name despite the difference.
So I think before, Bailey, you said something about the need to reinvent ourselves, like that every generation wants to reinvent themselves, and that's great. But for me, that's an and. Like, I think we need to reinvent ourselves, and we also need to integrate our new selves in with our history. Like, one time I went to a conference and someone said to the youth, like, you are the future. The speaker said this, and I just thought, yes, you are, and so are we.
Yeah.
Like, we are all the present. They're not just the future, they're the present. And they're not just the future, we're all the future. And I believe that a movement is stronger if we work together.
Yeah.
If we can have a multi-generational movement that doesn't get stuck in its ways, that's flexible, that can learn and grow, and also that can grow all kinds of extra shoots when needed. Like, that's fine. Like, I almost imagine like a plant that just grows all these extra little sprouts and sprigs, and some of them grow into full trees and some of them don't. But like, we need to be able to keep changing, but it's not at the expense of forgetting our history or disregarding, because I feel like I am the present, I'm the past, and I'm also planning to be the future for as long as I can be.
Yeah.
But not by myself. And part of that means learning how to step aside a little bit and like celebrate other people's new inventions and just learn. I also feel like things are changing so much that you can't just like learn what there is to learn and then be done, because as soon as you finish learning it, it will have changed again.
Yeah, hence the PhD.
Exactly. And like, it's just like being open to that, but that's part of the beauty of it. And I think identity is amazing. I love how creative people are. I love how resourceful people are. I love supporting people in their own journeys and their own process. And I don't know, I just think it's amazing. It's part of our human amazingness, is that the wide range of ways that we go about things, the wide range of ways that we understand things, ways that we self-label, creative communities that we create.
I think it's important, too, to talk about how sometimes we do get in our own way a little bit in the community. because you successfully advocated to change the Merriam-Webster's definition of bisexuality, right? It's a literal rewriting of how we were understood. And I feel like that's because there was kind of a limited understanding of what bisexuality is. Like, oh, it's so binary, it's so exclusive, it's so this, it's so that. And it's not. Everyone in this room knows that it isn't. So we kind of wanted to talk about what was that process like? Why did you get a bee in your bonnet?
A bee in my bonnet?
I know what I'm doing. Why'd you get a bee in your bonnet about it? And what did it teach you about institutional change and resistance?
Okay, so what actually happened was that people kept telling me, oh, bisexual is a binary definition. It just means men and women. And I'd say, no, it doesn't. Like, that's how people used to understand it. That's how some people understand it. But people who are connected to the bi+ community do not understand it that way. We understand it as a much more expansive thing and blah, 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 blah. But they'd say, no, it's in the dictionary. Oh. As though, like, end of conversation, there's the documentation, there's the proof. I was like, yeah, but things are changing. Things have changed. And the dictionary may not reflect that, but it's happened. Mm-hmm. But some people are just like, nope, done, conversation over, because I looked at the dictionary and the authority has said what it is, and that's what it is. So every year, Merriam-Webster dictionary chooses 10 words of the year. Mm-hmm. And my understanding is that they're words that have come into popular use, into more common use during that past year. Mm-hmm. And in 2018, Merriam-Webster made pansexual one of its 10 words of the year. And I was so excited. Mm-hmm. I think it happened because Janelle Monáe came out as pansexual
that year. Okay.
So Merriam-Webster made that one of the words, and I thought that was wonderful. It's like a social media thing. They put out a lot of press releases, and it's a chance to educate people about this word that not enough people are familiar with. And so I thought, great. So I tweeted at Merriam-Webster, and I said, hey, Merriam-Webster, so glad that you made pansexual one of your words of the year. Now maybe you'll update your definition of bisexual so that it reflects how people are using it in 2018.
Oh.
Crickets. Mm-hmm. I did have someone who I know put me in touch with someone who worked at Merriam-Webster who explained how they make change. Yeah. And she said there has to be lots of evidence of common use. There has to be lots of documentation, blah, blah, blah. So I wrote a little document that had citations. It was very official looking. I sent it to them, and basically their response was, we don't respond to lobbying. Ah! Right. So then in 2019, 1 year later, Merriam-Webster made them one of their 10 words. And I think it might have been number 1 or 2. It was right up at the top, the inclusive. Mm-hmm. Again, super exciting because it's a great opportunity to educate. So I wrote to Merriam-Webster. I tweeted at Merriam-Webster. I said, hey, Merriam-Webster, so glad that you made them one of your words of the year. And you know what I said next, right? Now maybe you'll update your definition of bisexual to reflect how people are using it in 2019. Mm-hmm. And again, crickets. And I was feeling pretty frustrated.
Okay, and you're very optimistic. Everyone needs to know how positive Robyn is, and the idea of you being frustrated just doesn't enter my frontal cortex at all.
I was frustrated, or as one of my friends says, flustrated. I was very frustrated. So I thought maybe we should do a social media. Maybe we should go at them on social media. But before I did that, I reached out to GLAAD, which was Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation. I think now they call themselves LGBT Alliance Against Defamation. I asked if there was someone there who could work with me on this project, and they connected me with this guy, Rich Ferraro, who works at GLAAD. We took my letter, we made it bigger, we made it better, we put it on GLAAD's letterhead, because GLAAD is an organization that does media advocacy, so they work with films and TV shows and all kinds of pop culture things to try to come up with some good language and stuff like that. And so Rich and I wrote this beautiful letter, we sent it in, and again, nothing. They basically responded in a similar way to the last time I had written. But then COVID happened in 2020, and I was sitting at home and I was starting to develop web programs to do on Zoom. And I thought, maybe I'm going to pull up this crappy definition of bisexual that's in the Merriam-Webster dictionary, and I can use that as a jump off for my discussion about how the definition has changed. Mm-hmm. So I type in Merriam-Webster bisexual, page comes up, and it's a different definition. They had actually updated the definition, which I do not have in front of me, but I think it's something like of pertaining to or blah, 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 attraction to one's own gender and different genders. I was so excited. Like just that. And again, I know I wasn't the only person doing this lobbying either. I think there were other people. I know there were some other people who were doing their own version of it. And I also know that there are people working on the Oxford, and like there have been people working on a lot of different change around language. Mm-hmm. But it was really exciting. It felt really good. And I think it reminded me that we can change things.
Yeah,
we
absolutely.
can. It may not happen soon. It may not happen perfectly, but we actually do have the influence. We do have the ability to influence the official spaces.
As we were writing up the show notes for today, that was definitely something that I was like, Bailey, Robyn has this really amazing story that I want her to tell again on the podcast. Precisely because arguing around definitions is definitely a favorite pastime for folks looking in, and how difficult that can be. And I am curious if you can tell us about a time when you saw bi+ people being deliberately written out of history or activism. How did you respond to that?
That was pretty much all the times. I mean, if you open up any reader, textbook, anthology, we are so often not even considered.
Yeah.
That's a simple fact. It has gotten somewhat better,
Yeah.
but we have a ways to go. And even now, if you opened up a reader, you'd probably find, I was looking at something the other day, which was only about 15 or 20 years old, but there was one page on bisexuality in a huge book.
Yeah, I read a book on youth LGBTQ plus activism, getting young people excited to advocate, and bisexuality was mentioned one time.
Despite the fact that almost a quarter of young people identify as LGBTQ plus, and most of those identify as bi.
Yeah.
When I came out as bi, I felt so rare and unusual and strange. And when I look at the data that's out now about how people identify, there was some truth to that. There were more than 2 bisexual people in the world when I came out as bi. But, if you look at the generational changes, for the generation silent, it's 1.something%. And the bisexual people were less than 1%. We're tiny. We're a tiny little fraction. If you look at boomers too, it's also a tiny little percent, less than 1% bisexual. If you look at Gen Z now, it's I think 15%, depending on what you look at. Bisexual only.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about lesbian, gay, or even pansexual or queer. Bisexual is a very large percentage. So in fact, we were pretty unusual.
Yeah.
My feelings of being rare were not completely made up of whole cloth.
Sometimes I see these numbers and I think, on paper, more people must feel comfortable to embrace their bisexuality, that they're disclosing it to a random survey. But then you go out into the world and you see few bisexuals or bi+ people in general, especially in queer spaces, because we don't feel like we can go there. It's like almost a cognitive dissonance. Yeah. I identify as this thing, but I don't feel like I'm allowed to engage in this space. And that's frustrating. It makes me want to, what can we do for the bi+ community? But you can only do so much. You can only offer so much space and say, we're here for you. I don't know. Robyn, how do you keep doing this work?
I love doing it. I get to meet really exciting, wonderful people. I'm very excited about the bi+ community.
Yeah.
I think that we are, obviously some of us are wonderful and some of us are less wonderful. And like any other group of people, we come in all kinds of different ways. But I do believe that many of the bi+ folks I know who have gotten involved in the community, who are part of the community, it takes creativity, it takes imagination, it takes courage. It takes something special to identify as bi+ in public.
Yeah.
Truly.
It really does. And I honor that. And I feel so fortunate to have the privilege of being in community with so many amazing people who are thinking outside the box. So I got to introduce Ibrahim Farajage at a conference once. And I still remember what I said about him. I said, not only does he color outside the box, but he mixes his own paint and he makes his own paper. And I do feel that there's a certain amount of that when you are creating a space that doesn't exist, when you are carving out this new place of possibility. It takes a lot of imagination. It takes a lot of creativity. And I love the people I get to meet. I really do. And I get to do this all over the world. I get to meet people all over the world. I've spoken now in 19 countries outside the U.S., and my work with Bi Women Quarterly brings me in contact with people in a lot of different places, and co-hosting the Bi+ World Meetups. That also gives me strength, because knowing that we're doing our little grassroots thing here, but so are other people in other places.
And I would love to jump on that word creativity. Lately, I've been on this kick of interpreting it as the act of bringing something into being, into existence. I mean, it's not a far off interpretation of the word for everybody listening in. And I do enjoy how wonderful it is to embrace that in the process of being and embodying the bisexual killjoy spirit, because bringing bisexuality into the conversation and choosing to do so proactively every single time, it's like you're bringing it into being every single time.
Absolutely.
And even more so, living in a world where we're constantly erased and invisible. And y'all know this rant from me already. I don't need to say it again. I'm curious about what you would say to younger bi+ folks who are looking for resources or excited to read an LGBT book only to find that bisexuality is mentioned in a single page. What are some words that you have for all of this bi+ youth who are constantly faced with invisibility, with erasure, having to summon the courage to create?
I would tell people that they have the power. They have the power to make the world closer to the way they want to see it. And I think about one of the quotes that I use sometimes is that activists are cultural artists. They imagine a world that doesn't yet exist, and then they take action to bring that world into being. So we often underestimate our power. I think especially in this we're in such a consumer-driven culture where people consume things, but we could also create them.
Yeah.
As you're doing right here with this podcast, right? This is amazing. You saw a need and you took action and you made it happen. And that's so important. Even the Merriam-Webster story is an example of that you actually can change things. And I've had conversations, you mentioned a novel with like one page. I've had conversations with writers, with novelists, especially young adult writers, and said, hey, your novel, it would make me so happy to see actually a bisexual identified character in your novel. And I've seen some of the people I've spoken to have done that.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's just because of my one conversation with them, but I think that if we ask for things, when someone uses language that I find makes me feel uncomfortable, sometimes it's not calling them out in public. Sometimes it's not just storming off and never speaking to them again. Sometimes it's just saying, hey, when you go on stage, if you would be willing to say this, I think it would make some people more comfortable.
Yeah.
It's not a big ask, but some people don't ask. If you don't imagine that it's going to make any difference, then you don't ask. And I believe in asking.
Something that I think that bi+ people are also really good at is having this creativity, but also having a lot of energy for a little while. We put too much on ourselves, we burn out, we overextend. But this isn't just something that bi+ people do in the bi+ community. It's also something that I see bi+ people do in larger LGBTQ+ contexts where they really, really give themselves. They really care about this other issue, and then all of their labor is sort of ignored or covered up by someone or something that is more important. And what do you think that the queer movement in general needs to reckon with when it comes to the treatment of bi+ people within it?
I think we need to acknowledge the diversities that are in every room. And it's not just bisexual people. It's like there are lots of people who are often in the room who don't get recognized. And I think it's really important that we work together with people.
Yeah.
It's interesting because sometimes you get asked the question, should we do bisexual only organizing or bi+ only organizing, or should we do work in the general LGBTQ+ movement? And my answer to that is yes, both, all of that.
Always both.
But it doesn't mean that every single person needs to do all of that.
Yeah.
I think that each person, if you're feeling like this movement is not working for you, then don't do it. Do something else. But I think that both are really important, and it's really important that bi+ folks are present in those spaces all the time. I was on the board of Mass Equality, which is our Massachusetts' statewide LGBTQ advocacy group. I was on the board for about a dozen years.
Wow.
Through the marriage equality, protecting marriage equality in the state, and also through getting the trans equal rights bill passed in the state. And I was out there on the board. I was out as bisexual the whole time. And there was a time when both presidents, the C3 and C4 board president, were both bisexual. We're there.
Yeah.
We are there. And I think it's just doing the work we're doing, but also making sure people know that we're in the room.
Yeah. Something that I think is really not funny, but I've been thinking a lot about Alicia Ortiz's most recent conversation with us about labor and bi+ness. And how the secret to longevity is mutual aid. And also, basically, you don't have to organize everyone else's party. Sometimes all you have to do is go to the party and show up and bring something. And I wish more people in this space would recognize how much power their presence has. That's all you have to do. I just need you to be here.
Movement as potluck. One of the things that happens often in movements that are under stress is that we get into the scarcity model.
Oh my God, yeah.
It's like, you can't have a piece of the pie because then there won't be enough pie for someone else. And I just keep thinking, like, let's figure out ways to make more pie.
Yeah.
Make more pie. Make lots of pie.
We
make
have
it
the
bigger.
ingredients for pie.
Yeah, and also have other things. Like, just the whole idea that we can't get stuck in scarcity, that my being recognized and my being visible and my being valued is not taking away from anyone else.
No, it's not.
And we need to value each other. And again, because if we create an environment where people feel like they're not being valued, then they're going to go away, and we're not going to have the benefit of their creativity and their energy and their work, right? And so I feel like the movement, the larger movement, needs all of us. The bi+ movement needs all of the different people within it. The LGBTQ+ movement needs all the people.
Yeah.
For me, it's always additive. It's how do you bring more people in? How do you make the table bigger?
Exactly.
How do we bring 10 times more people than I expect to this event?
Do you know how many literal tables I had to pull out today? We had to extend the table twice. I mean, Robyn, we talked about this a little bit just a moment ago, but so many people have been burnt out of this movement. So many people have left. But you haven't. What has been your staying power, and how do we build a movement that doesn't chew people up?
And we do chew up our leaders. We do get very critical of our leaders. I think of activism as a lifelong commitment. The topics that I work on and focus on may vary, may expand or contract over time, but I want to do this for as long as I'm alive. And to do that, you also have to pace yourself.
Yeah.
You have to take care of yourself. Like I do Zumba 4 times a week. I do other things as well as bi+ activism. I find homes for rescue kitties. I do all kinds of stuff. I just think you really need to, it's been said, I think Audre Lorde or someone said that self-care is a radical act.
Like, yes, it is.
It really is. It really is. You know, you have to take care of yourself, and that doesn't necessarily mean disappearing, but it may mean sometimes stepping back and gathering yourself, or it may mean shifting how you do your work. I still remember in the early days of the Boston Bisexual Women's Network, one of my dear friends said to me, she said, I'm taking a sabbatical. She said, I'll be back in the fall.
Okay.
And she disappeared for 6 months from all of our regular work that we were doing together. She did come back. But it was shocking to me that someone could even take a break. I was like, oh, you could take a break? And I take breaks by focusing on different things, like when I'm feeling wiped out. And I think even having Ellen guest edit By Women Quarterly once a year is wonderful because it's not a relentless project. It's a project that has, I mean, I work on it every week of the year, but how I work on it changes.
And speaking of self-care and taking breaks, with so much that is happening right now in the world, politically speaking, everything that our communities are going through and ourselves, we do like to root in positivity so that we can enact a meaningful long-term change and not burn out in the process. What role do you think joy, laughter, and pleasure play in sustaining this kind of long-term activism?
It's everything. I also think of Emma Goldman's quote, if I can't dance, I don't want to be part of your revolution. And my friend Bob Boston, who's a singer-songwriter in Canada, said, just because you're changing the world, it doesn't mean you have to have a bad time.
Heck yeah.
And obviously there are horrible things happening in the world.
Yeah.
Horrible. But in order to keep on fighting them, you need to get sleep. You need to laugh. You need to find joy when you can. Some people say, oh, that's a privilege, and so you shouldn't have any joy because you should be suffering like everybody else. I don't think you should forget that other people are suffering and that it's not turning it off, but it's also doing things that make you strong.
Yeah.
And that make you solid and make you whole, because if you can do your work from a place of strength and mental health, then you're so much more powerful. You can be so much more effective.
Yeah. That is absolutely true. And you don't lose your empathy for others when you are smiling and laughing and dancing, because you're like, I need to recharge myself or I can't take care of you. If I can't take care of me, I can't take care of anybody. Ultimately, the whole community is going to suffer. Robyn, just in that sense of positivity, like, what are you excited about for bi+ activism now?
Some of the things that excite me, well, the podcasts right now. I just found on the internet a list of
many.
There are a lot of different bi+ podcasts.
It's really cool.
I wasn't aware of most of them, and I was very excited to see that. The new technologies are making new things possible, and that is very, very exciting. I'm excited about, well, there's an international conference on bisexuality coming up in Amsterdam in 2026,
Yes!
which I will be at. There's been a lot of very exciting scholarship and writing. Super excited by young adult literature. I love, love, love young adult LGBTQ+ literature. I read it voraciously. And there are so many more characters now that have wonderful bisexual representation. And people who have so many other identities too, like immigrants, different people who are like also bisexual. I love seeing that. I love seeing that how many more people are showing up in these books. I love even shows like Heartstopper. Like, that excites me. I think that popular culture is a wonderful wonderful vehicle for making people feel seen and possible and affirmed. I call it, a big dose of vitamin B plus. Like, it's so exciting. Like, when I read a young adult novel and I see a great bisexual character, I'm like, I feel good.
Yeah.
I feel affirmed. I feel good. I feel validated. And I'm a grown-up.
Pop culture is culture, which sometimes feels really important to remember. I find that it's really easy to forget that in a dismissal of the popularity of it all. But it is precisely because it's so accessible and so readily available that it is a crucial piece of how we communicate with each other, how we understand ourselves, and how we understand our neighbor.
Yeah, absolutely. I also believe that culture, meaning books, songs, TV shows, all the different ways that culture shows up, I think they can get into our hearts in ways that logic cannot.
Yeah.
It bypasses some of our barriers, and it can affirm us in such a profound way. And it also can change opinions. Like, I sometimes think people say, well, how could I get my parents to understand? If you could watch a TV show with them
Yeah.
that has some really cool character, like if you were non-binary and you watched One Day at a Time with, I don't know, with your
One Day at a Time is so fun.
with your
Such a
parents, the
fun
new
show.
version.
Yeah.
Because it's a non-binary teenager. And things like that, like just the little things that I think sometimes that would help them understand what that means. And that would help them see that character as, that's a nice character. That person's a really cool character. It's like just little things like that. If you could watch Heartstopper with your parents, if you could watch, I don't know, I just feel like there are ways that culture has so much emotional power to break down our barriers and get inside of us.
I mean, scientifically speaking, it's better to hit someone with the emotional wham instead of trying to lecture them about why it's valid. Show me, don't tell me.
Yeah, and in a way, as an educator, I think you need multiple methods.
Yeah.
You need to affect people's hearts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You also need to give them information that can be used, and it's really finding the balance of that. But storytelling is very, very effective.
So we do like to leave our listeners with advice on how they can be better bisexual killjoys. And we would love your insight. What would you say to bi+ people looking for ways to empower themselves?
Thinking about being a bisexual killjoy, which I certainly have been quite a lot in my lifetime, one thing I try to do is give people a little grace and remember that there are a lot of people who don't know things. And it's not because they're bad people. It's because they haven't had access to good information. So I try very hard to talk myself off the ledge first and give them a little bit of grace. And most people don't say things that are exclusive or offensive or leave us out on purpose. Most people just don't even know. And so I try to start from there, but I also think it's really important to give that feedback and to think about ways to do it that other people are capable of taking in. Because if you yell at someone, they're not going to hear you.
Nope.
But if you can find a tone of voice and a way to present what you're trying to say where they can, then you might actually achieve change.
This has been such a wonderful conversation about history, the movement coming out, the fact that there are likely 10 times more bisexual people out there in the world than you think there are. I just feel so honored that we got to have this chat. It's been so great, and it's been so wonderful hearing all of this advice that you've had. Which, I mean, feels a lot of it is for us, too, in terms of how to keep it going.
Yeah, Robyn made some really aggressive eye contact with us when we were saying, don't burn out.
Don't burn out.
Don't burn out. Rest.
Don't burn.
I know.
It's been truly a pleasure. What are some things that we should be on the lookout next from you?
I'm in the process right now of lining up Bi Women Quarterly for the next year, and people can read it for free.
It'll be linked in the show notes.
It's a free global publication. We always welcome new writers and new donors and all kinds of other things. So people can certainly look forward to more Bi Women Quarterly. I'm in the process right now of scheduling my fall speaking engagements.
That's exciting.
I'm going to be going to the Netherlands in a couple of weeks.
Woo! And you can follow Robyn's Instagram for that.
Oh, one of the projects I am working on is I've gotten very interested in Bi+ elders. And I'm trying to do some qualitative interviews. So one of the things I hope to do in the next year, I've interviewed 19 people so far.
Wow.
I'd like to bring that up to 40.
That's a lot for qualitative interviews.
Yeah. And
That's exciting.
they're short, but I have some things I'm asking them. And so I really want to work more on that this year. That's a project that I hope to get to 40 in the next year.
Thank you again for joining us, Robyn. We've come so far as a movement because of you and other Bi+ advocates. Seeing your success help us feel like we can actually carry the torch and keep it going. Thank you for embodying the bisexual killjoy spirit in all the work that you do.
Thank you for tuning into Bisexual Killjoy, where we know that bisexuality isn't a phase, it's a phenomenon. To support us, share us with your friends, families, and enemies. Subscribe to our Substack and rate our podcast, preferably 5 stars. And as always, we want to hear from you. You can share your stories with us on Instagram or via email at bisexualkilljoy@gmail.com. We would also love to answer your questions in our advice column, Give It To Me by Plus. So check out the Substack for more details on that. And until next time, keep being a bisexual killjoy.
Stay bisexual and stay strong.